भूतकल्पना जाला गम्भीरोदारमूर्तये नमः समन्तभद्राय समन्तस्फुरणत्विषे. As usual, we should start with the refuge and Bodhicitta, which is in this paper. We can do together. Buddham cha dharmam cha ganottamam cha yavaddi bodhim sharanam prayami dhanadi krityaischa kritairmayebhir buddho bhaveyam jagato hitaya. Buddham cha dharmam cha ganottamam cha yavaddi bodhim sharanam prayami dhanadi krityaischa kritairmayebhir buddho bhaveyam jagato hitaya. Buddham cha dharmam cha ganottamam cha yavaddi bodhim sharanam prayami dhanadi krityaischa kritairmayebhir buddho bhaveyam jagato hitaya. And then we do the immeasurables. Sattva sukhena samprayujyeran sattva dukkena viyujyeran sattva sukhena na viyujyeran sattva hitam labheran sattva sukhena samprayujyeran sattva dukkena viyujyeran sattva sukhena na viyujyeran sattva hitam labheran sattva sukhena samprayujyeran sattva dukkena viyujyeran sattva sukhena na viyujyeran sattva hitam labheran. And now we recite the verses that we have done so far. And these you can repeat. I know they're not as simple, so we don't do together. You just repeat. Sugatan sasutan sadharmakayan pranipatya darato khilamscha vandyan sugatatmaja samvaravataram kathayishyami yathagamam samasat nahi kinchidapurvamatra vachyam nacha sangrantana kaushalam mamasti ataeva name parartha chinta swamano vasayitum kritam mayedam mama tavadanena yati vruddhim kushalam bhavayitum prasada vegaha athamat samadhatureva pashyed aparopyena matopi sarthakoyam Kshana sampadiyam sudurlabha pratilabdha purushartha sadhani yadinatra vichintyate hitam punarapyesha samagamah kutaha Ratrau yatha megha ghanandhakare vidyukshanam darshayati prakasham buddhanubhavena tatha kadachil lokasya punyeshu matih kshanam syat tasmat shubham durbalameva nityam balam tu papasya mahatsu ghoram tajjiyate nyena shubhena kena sambodhichittam yadinama nasyat kalpanan alpan pravichintayadbhir drishtam munindrairhitameta yatas sukheneva sukham pravruddham utplavayati apramitan janaughan bhavaduhka shatani tartu kameir api sattva vyasanani hartu kameihi bahusaukhya shatani bhoktu kameir navimochyam hi sadeva bodhicittam bhavacharaka bandhano varakaha sugatanam suta uchyate kshanena sanaramara lokavandaniyo bhavati smodita eva bodhicitte ashuchi pratimam imam grihitva jinaratna pratimam karotyanargham rasajatam vedhaniyam sudradham grannata bodhicitta samyam suparikshitam aprameyadhibhir bahumulyam jagadeka sartavahaihi gatipattana vipravasashilaha sudradham grannata bodhicittaratnam kadaliva phalam vihayayati kshayamanyat kushalam hi sarvameva satatam phalati kshayam nayati prasavatyeva tu bodhicitta vrikshaha kritvapi papani sudarunani yadashrayaduttarati kshanena shurashrayeneva mahabhayani nashriyate tatkathamajña sattvaihi yuganta kalan alavan mahanti papani yan nirdahati kshanena yasyanushamsanamitaanuvacha maitreyanatha sudhanaya dhiman tadbodhicittam dvividham vijñātavyam samasataha bodhipranidhicittam ca bodhiprasthanameva ca gantu kamasya gantuscha yatha bhedah pratiyate tatha bhedo nayornyeyo yatha sankhena panditaihi Bodhipranidhichittasya samsarepi phalam mahat natu avichinna punyatvam yatha prasthana chetasaha yatah prabhritya paryanta sattvadhatu pramokshane samadadati tacchittam anivartyena cetasa tatah prabhriti suptasya pramattasyaapyanekashaha avichinnaः punyadharaः pravartante nabhassamaha idam subahu prachayam sopapattika muktavan hinadhimukti sattvartham swayameva tathagatah shirashulani sattvanam nashayamiti chintayan aprameyena punyena grihyate sma hitashayah kimuta pramitam shulam ekaikasya jihirshataha aprameya gunam sattvam ekaikam cha jikirshataha. This is where we stopped. Very brief summary of what we read so far. Again, you remember the beginning is prostration to the three jewels and indication of a subject matter that makes up for the auspicious beginning, the Mangala Acharana. Then we have some idea of the purpose of a treatise, also expressed with some humbleness by Arya Shanti Deva. Then we have some kind of introductory considerations about our precious opportunity and how taking up Bodhicitta would be a way to take advantage of that precious opportunity. And then we have a discussion about the greatness of Bodhicitta in different ways through similes. Many similes come from the very same sutra, the Gandavyuha Sutra. Much of the greatness of Bodhicitta has to do with its being connected to very great merit. And then at one point, it is said that the Tathagata himself spoke of all this greatness, and he did so with the upapatti, with reasoning. And the reasoning is that even when one wishes to remove the headaches of just a few sentient beings, that person accumulates immediately enormous merit just by that intention. What to say if somebody wants to remove all the suffering, which is infinite, of each and every sentient beings, which are infinite, and if one wants to make each and every sentient beings the recipient of infinite good qualities. So this is the logic to understand what had been said earlier, which is while the result of the Bodhichitta of Aspiration is already very great, even within samsara, the result of a Bodhicitta of setting forth, of actually matching this intention with a practice of a sixth perfection, is even greater, and it amounts to the production of infinite streams of merit, moment by moment, even when we are not actively thinking of it. So even when we are sleeping, or we have fainted, or we are completely distracted. So this is, I think, where we are. Now we are still discussing this. So the next few verses will also give us an idea of why this is great merit, by stressing its rarity, by stressing that it's not so common actually for people to develop bodhicitta, and it will explain why. What makes it a bit difficult to develop bodhicitta for most people. So now we can read verse 23. Kasyamatuh piturvapi hitasham seyamidrashi devatanam rishinam va brahmanam va bhavishyati. Kasyamatuh piturvapi hitasham seyamidrashi devatanam rishinam va brahmanam va bhavishyati. Overall meaning: whose mother or father even is going to have such a wish for benefit? Which deities, which seers, which brahmas might have it? So who is going to have such a wish? So even one's mother, even one's father, even deities, even great sages. Here the example given is Vasishta, Gotama, etc. Here Gotama does not refer to the Buddha, but to another seer, a non-Buddhist seer. And which Brahmas? Brahmas means a high deity who is in the Brahma world. So who is going to have that kind of wish? This wish of Bodhicitta. So what this stresses, and this is a point which I think it's quite important, is that when we think of Bodhicitta, of course it is connected just with having a benevolent intention in general, some kind of altruism, some kind of good heart, however we want to put it, in simple terms. I saw it was falling from your face. So, if we have all that, that's really great, and of course it is connected to Bodhicitta. It's kind of a presupposition, like we need that. We need altruism to develop Bodhicitta. That's why it's connected also to the practice of the four immeasurables. But on the other hand, Bodhicitta is a very specific type of wish to benefit. This is the point. So it's not a limited benefit that we wish for. It's the unlimited benefit of liberation from samsara. So we want all sentient beings to have that kind of ultimate freedom from suffering. So it's a specific wish, it's somewhat specific. And even someone who is a very benevolent, altruistic person, however admirable this person might be, not necessarily has Bodhicitta. So this is a point we should understand. This is the point that he's making. So he's taking as an example those who we normally consider as being very benevolent. So father and mother are known to be very benevolent towards their children. It doesn't necessarily mean that they want the children to be free from the suffering of samsara. They might not even have that in mind, actually. In fact, sometimes parents might do things which make the children stay within samsara as much as possible. So we have to keep that in mind. It's different. the wish of Bodhicitta means that one already understands that samsara is suffering, and therefore one has that kind of very broad wish. So this is what here is being stressed. So the other examples are also classes of beings which we normally regard as being very benevolent and as being kind to others, such as the deities, or seers such as Bodhicitta. All these seers were known to be benevolent people. And the Brahma deities, all of these are known to be benevolent. They're not known to be bad or lacking compassion. But the point is, the wish of Bodhicitta is a specific wish. That is why several times in the text, the commentator also repeats it. It says, Bodhicitta means that one, for the sake of protecting or benefiting all sentient beings, wishes to become a Buddha. So it needs to have these two qualities. One wishes to benefit all sentient beings, which means ultimately make them completely free of suffering, and also understanding that Buddhahood is the way. So this is an uncommon wish. So that's the point of this particular verse. For the rest is somewhat simple, I think. So we can repeat it once more. Kasya matuf piturvapi hitasham seyamidrishi devatanam rishinam va brahmanam va bhavishyati. Now he will explain a little bit more clearly why these sentient beings might not have that wish. Teshameva cha sattvanam swarthepyesha manorathaha notpanna purva swapnepi pararthe sambhavah kutah teshameva cha sattvanam swartepyesha manorathaha notpanna purva swapnepi pararthe sambhavah kutah. Okay, so the logic is in a way simple. It is those sentient beings, such as the mother, father, etc., for them, this wish, what was the wish? The wish of removing all suffering and accomplishing all good qualities. This wish has never been born even for themselves. Even in a dream. So even in a dream when their mind was not so lucid, it never came to their mind that I'm going to be liberated and omniscient. So even for their own sake, they never thought of removing all suffering and accomplishing all virtues. So if they did not have that wish for themselves, then how are they going to have that wish for somebody else? That's the point. Another way to read this verse, actually there's two ways to read it, this is, the commentator points out, is that we can put the word in a dream with the second part, meaning those sentient beings never had this wish even for themselves. How could they have this wish for others even in a dream? So that's the point. And one thing that the commentator points out is that the world at large has oneself more dear than another. So if we're unable to develop a certain wish for oneself, it's unlikely that usually we're able to develop that wish for somebody else. But I think we understand now the logic. Since they do not even value what is or they don't think it's possible maybe, the object of a wish of Bodhicitta, so they're not going to have that wish for others. So even for themselves, they don't value this wish of removing on suffering and obtaining all good qualities. So because they don't value this, how are they going to actually have that wish for somebody else? So this is the logic of the previous verse. This gives us the reason. Okay, I think we can repeat it. Teshameva cha sattvanam swarthepyesha manorathaha notpanna purvaswapnepi pararthe sambhavah kutah sattvaratna visheshoyam apurvo jayate katham yat pararthashayonyesham naswarthepi upajayate sattvaratna visheshoyam apurvo jayate katham yat pararthashayonyesham naswarthepi upajayate. This verse stresses that a bodhisattva is really exceptional. There's something exceptional about someone who decides to take up bodhicitta. Why? So he says, how does this exceptional gem of a being, how is it born? How is it possible? This exceptional gem of a being whose wish for the sake of others is not born in others even for their own sake. So what a bodhisattva wishes to others, others do not even wish for themselves. When we take up bodhicitta, we wish for others to be completely free from suffering, to obtain liberation. And we wish it to people who might have no wish for liberation at all. So it's quite an exceptional thing. Now, another point that implicitly here is stressed, if we reflect about what has been said, is that we need to develop naishkramya ourselves in order to develop bodhicitta. Naishkramya is the wish to go out of samsara. If we don't have that wish for ourselves, first of all, it's very unlikely that we will be able to develop this towards others. It's a rather simple thing because it means we don't value it. So, in general, this is a point even about vows. One needs to have the pratimoksha samvara. The word samvara is used as well. We find it here. We find it in the case of a pratimoksha. It can mean something like restraint, and it can mean something like a vow. So one needs to have the pratimoksha samvara to be a proper receptacle of a bodhisattva vow, which is bodhicitta. The pratimoksha samvara, the vows of individual liberation, are minimally taking refuge with at least one vow. Like usually for lay people, it's five, the Panchashila, but one can take even just one, but that's the minimum. And the point is to have the attitude of Naishkramya when one develops the refuge. Naishkramya explained, we often translate as renunciation, but it's not a very good translation in a way, because it's not really about giving up something, but it's about having a very strong determination to go out of suffering. So that is the basis. So when we reflect on what is said in these three verses, partly it encourages us to make sure that we also understand Naishkramya, because otherwise it's unlikely that we can develop Bodhicitta. So we can see that the different parts of Buddhist practice are closely related. It is possible to take the Pratimoksha vow even together with the Bodhicitta vow. That is very much possible, but one needs to have both. There are several other good qualities of Bodhicitta, and many of them have been explained in the Gandavyuha, this same sutra which has been quoted several times in the commentary to show us that there is a clear link between these treatises and the word of a Buddha. In this case, it tells us that he is not going to give us everything. If we want to know all of that, we should look at the other text by Shantideva, the Shiksha Samuccaya, the Compendium of Trainings, which consists in very large quotes from the sutras. So there we can find more in detail. If we want to know more good qualities of Bodhicitta, we can look there. So actually there would be even more that can be said. Actually, more specifically, this is the good qualities of a bodhisattva. So of somebody who has given birth to Bodhicitta. That's what it refers to. Okay, I think, however, this verse also is not too difficult, and we can repeat it once more. Sattvaratna visheshoyam apurvo jayate katham yat pararthashayonyesham naswarte upajayate Jagadananda bijasya Jagad dukkaushadhasya cha Chittaratnasya yat punyam Tat katham hi pramiyatam Jagadananda bijasya Jagat dukkaushadhasya cha Chittaratnasya yat punyam Tat katham hi pramiyatam. Now the next verse is again an implicit praise of someone who gives rise to Bodhicitta, by once again pointing out that Bodhicitta is extremely meritorious. And this is in terms of its effectiveness. So not just in terms of the intention, the greatness of the intention, but also in terms of its efficacy and its result. So first it is said that it is the seed for the happiness or bliss or joy of the whole world, and it is the medicinal herb for the suffering of the whole world. So for this jewel of a mind, so Bodhicitta, how will it be possible to measure its merit? So since it has the ability of producing joy for all the world, since it has the ability of removing all sorts of suffering, then how can we measure its merit? So in what way is it a cause of joy? Well, because it is the cause for the perfection or the wealth, the good fortune of being born as deities, etc. So the continuity of rebirths. In fact, it is in the sutras itself which it has been explained that Bodhicitta has this merit which cannot be measured. And there is a sutra which gives us an example. It's called the Arya Viradatta Pariprucha, which means the question of Viradatta. In this sutra there is a verse which says, Bodhicitta dhiyat punyam taccharupi bhavedyadi akasha dhatum sampurya bhuyaschotaritat bhavet. It's a famous verse which is quoted very often in many treatises. In many Tibetan treatises on the stages of the path, you will find this verse. What this verse says is, if the merit which comes from Bodhicitta had form, then it would fill the whole of space, and still it could go beyond that. So, of course, it's a hyperbole. Space doesn't have a limit. But this is just to give us an idea. Merit doesn't have form, so there's no question of extension. But if it had form, then it would fill everything and a bit more. So that's the idea. One point that the commentator makes is that even though here this is indicated in general about Bodhicitta as a whole, this refers primarily to the Bodhicitta of setting forth, because this is the subject matter now. We discussed the merit of the first type of Bodhicitta, now we are in the second type of Bodhicitta. So this is the one that now is being emphasized. And now, in what sense is it the medicine for the suffering of all sentient beings? Because it removes all types of bodily and mental suffering. Therefore, it is considered like the ultimate medicine. And these two things which have been said refer to the two types of purposes of humans, purposes of persons. Sorry, better say persons, purushartha. You remember, we can divide the purposes of persons into just two. One is called abhyudaya, which means something like good fortune, and refers to happiness within samsara. And so when he says the seed of all the world's happiness, that refers to abhyudaya. The other one is nishreyasa, which means that which has nothing better, the ultimate good. And this refers to liberation, which means going completely beyond suffering. So the second qualification of Bodhicitta as the medicinal herb which remedies the suffering of the whole world refers to nishreyasa, the second one. So in this way, it has been praised as that which accomplishes all human aims. That is the idea. Okay, I think we can repeat this verse. Jagadananda bijasya Jagad dukkaushadhasya cha Chittaratnasya yat punyam tat katham hi pramiyatam hitashamsana matrena buddha puja vishishyate kim punas sarva sattvanam sarva saukyarthamudyamat hitashamsana matrena buddha puja vishishyate kim punas sarva sattvanam sarva saukyarthamudyamat. So, general meaning, worship of the Buddhas is excelled by just the wish to benefit. What to say of what comes from the effort towards all types of happiness for all sentient beings? So, the first part actually refers to the Bodhichitta, the Bodhichitta of Aspiration. What he means is that it is said in the sutras, and now I will mention the quote that the commentator offers, that if somebody develops Bodhichitta of Aspiration, that's more merit than making very extensive offerings to the Buddhas. Making offerings to the Buddha, we have to remember, creates lots of merit. But this wish, just wish of Bodhicitta, is more merit. If that is the case just with the Bodhicitta of Aspiration, then what to say of the second type of Bodhicitta, where we engage in the 6 perfections actively? So this is the overall meaning. Again, he briefly repeats the wish of Bodhicitta. In brief, it is, may I become a Buddha for the sake of protecting all sentient beings. So just by this, the merit which is generated is more than the merit of worshipping the Buddhas. And we know that from the Agama, from the textual tradition. Now, one point why he mentions this is that it is considered that the details of how karma works are only known to a Buddha. So this is one point. So there's different types of phenomena in the world. Some of them are not really so hidden. Some of them are a bit hidden, and some of them are considered to be extremely hidden. So we usually can assess on our own, even without being Buddhas, how the first 2 are real. They correspond to the nature of things. So, for example, with some effort, we can see that the teachings on impermanence are real. Through our observation, and also through reasoning, and also if we develop shamatha and vipassana, we can appreciate more and more the truth of impermanence. So this is not very hidden. Emptiness is a bit more hidden. So that's more difficult for us to realize, but nevertheless, we don't have to become complete Buddhas before we have some realization of emptiness. However, when it comes to the details of how karma and the result of karma work, that's only something that a Buddha can know. So I'm mentioning this because we emphasize very often in the Buddhist tradition that Buddhism is not so much based on faith. Okay, there is this famous verse, Tapacchedat Chanikashat Suvarnamiva Panditaihi Pariksha Bhikshavo Grahyam Madvacho Natu Gauravat. So, just like experts might heat up or try to cut or use a touchstone to check whether gold is gold, O monks, you should accept my words after checking them, not just because I say so. So we might wonder, well, in this case it sounds like we're just accepting because the Buddha said it. But the point is that this is also a type of reasoning, which means, since for the first two types of phenomena, we can check for ourselves and see that whatever we find in the Buddha's teachings never fails. Once we check that and we see that it always works, then when we find something which is like an extension of our knowledge, which does not contradict which we already know, then we trust it. Because we see that the Buddha never said anything incorrect about everything that we could check. Of course, if the next thing that is said contradicted everything that was said earlier, it would be a different story. But here the point is just a detail about how causality works, how the relationship between karma and the result of karma works. Is not just about whether there is karma and the result of karma. That is not so hidden. But the details, the things that we find in the sutras, such as if somebody does such and such an action, they will be born in such and such a state, even with certain details about the environment, their body, etc., etc. Well, that we cannot check. But the reason why we trust it is that everything else that we could check was perfectly sensible. So in this sense, you could say that there is an element of faith in certain cases, but is not faith completely divorced of reasoning or without any reason. Let's put it this way. And we are invited anyhow to check. So I just wanted to mention it because we have very often this reference to the Agama, and sometimes we might get a little bit confused about why so much authority to the Agama, but this is the reason. Okay, and now I will tell you what this sutra says. Gangavalika Sankhyanī Buddha Kshetrani Yo Naraha Dadyat Sadratna Purnani Lokanatebhya Evahi. So this first verse gives us the example of 1 out of 2 persons. So one person who would take Buddha fields. A Buddha field is an entire universe. So as many pebbles there are in the river Ganges, so many Buddha fields, if we were to fill them with very good jewels, precious substances, and he were to offer all of those to the Buddhas. So you can imagine what kind of huge offering we're talking about. Well, this is the first person. Now, second person, Yascheka pranjalir bhutva chittam bodhaya namayet yam vishishyate puja yasyanto pina vidyate. So he says, and another person who were to just put one's hand like this and dedicate or turn one's mind towards Buddhahood, this is surpassing the first act of worship. And it's infinite. We do not find any limit for this. So he's saying that if just somebody folds their hand and turns their mind towards becoming a Buddha, that surpasses the merit that one would obtain by filling up a very vast quantity of universes with the best possible jewels and offering all of them to the Buddhas. So just developing the wish for bodhicitta, the bodhicitta of wish, the first type of bodhicitta, surpasses that. So this is actually something that we find very often in the sutras, and I found that maybe sometimes we don't pay too much attention, because there are many cases where it is said in the sutras that there are many things that we can do in terms of developing a good intention or even learning certain things, like reflecting on emptiness. And they say this is actually better and greater merit than many material outer acts of worship. Many material outer acts of offering that we do actually cannot match the type of merit that we can obtain through things like developing bodhicitta or reflecting on emptiness, etc., etc. So this is a point which I think is good to remember. If really we often, of course it's very good, no doubt, if often we like to accumulate merit and we like to make dana to the Buddhas, that's all very good, but if we have this appreciation of merit, then why not take up at least also those type of meritorious activities which are entirely internal? And indeed, this is a feature of Buddhism, that it's an internal practice. Primarily, it has to do with the mind. So why not interiorize our practice as much as possible, not to the exclusion of the other activities which are outer, but knowing that by doing so, we accumulate even much, much more merit, when the Buddhas themselves encouraged us to do so. So you can see in the sutras very often it is said, if somebody recites just one verse from this sutra, that place becomes a chaitya. Even if you don't build an actual stupa, it's as if there is a stupa with the relics of a Buddha. And that doesn't take much. Just to recite one verse doesn't take too much. It doesn't take a huge fundraising, doesn't take a lot of time, but sometimes we don't focus on that part. And I think it's a pity, because again and again in the sutras we find this emphasis that indeed there are many things that we can do just with our mind very sincerely, and these things please the Buddhas greatly. These things produce immense amounts of merit, and therefore we should take them up. Yes, it's true. There are sutras also tell us that we get immense merit by building statues of a Buddha, by building stupas, etc., etc. That is all true. So I'm not saying excluding that. All of that is great benefit. But of course, we have to try to maintain also the inner tradition of Buddhism. Okay. However, in this sutra, there is not much more, maybe. Well, the only addition that he makes is that if he says that somebody who just folds their hands and turns the mind towards Buddhahood, creates that merit, because this is actually what is said. Just imagine if somebody very clearly produces bodhicitta by saying, I am going to remove all suffering from sentient beings and produce all good qualities in those sentient beings. Help them develop all good qualities. So if we have that explicit wish, that's going to be just unthinkable amount of merit. Okay, now we can repeat it. Hitashamsana matrena Buddha puja vishishyate Kim punah sarva sattvanam sarva saukhyarthamudyamat. Okay, so these are the verses I wanted to do today, but with something else. I don't remember actually whether I've explained something or not already, so I have to ask you to help me remember. Do you know why the Mahayana is called Mahayana? Did you discuss this? Okay. Well, then I think it's worth looking at it, because I feel you might think this is slightly controversial, but no. I just want to explain something for the sake of clarity, because nowadays, not everybody, but many people have a slight confusion, a small confusion, which is they think we should not use the word Hinayana, it's not polite. We should substitute it with Theravada. This is the very often people have this idea. I think this is wrong, frankly. It's wrong on many aspects. Why is it wrong? Well, first of all, Hinayana is not exactly impolite. There's some reason why this term is used, and it is used in specific contexts. Usually it is used when one is talking to people who are of non-fixed gotra. You remember? We actually encounter the term Hina Adhimukti. So that means for those people to develop the wish to practice for their own liberation would be a low thing, because they have the potential to directly practice a bodhisattva path. So it's a term of comparison. So in that sense, there is nothing impolite. And I also think it's not very nice to accuse the Buddha himself to be impolite, because he himself used this word. So, in my opinion, we should rather understand the context where the term is used. The Buddha and very great Buddhist masters have used that term. Were they all rude people? I don't think that's the way we should think. We can use a better substitute if we want. It's not a perfect substitute because it covers only half of it, but we can use Shravaka, the vehicle of the hearers. That is actually more precise, and this is what usually Mahayana philosophers would do when they're not talking to somebody just to convince them that they should take up the Mahayana. Then normally they would use Shravakayana, Pratyeka Buddhayana, and Mahayana or Bodhisattvayana. That's a more normal term, and we could use that. But you should not think that that equals Theravada. That's really a misconception. Shravakayana, Pratyeka Buddhayana, Mahayana, these are yanas, they are vehicles. Theravada is a school. It's a completely different concept. You understand what I mean? Theravada means a specific school of Buddhism. So there is Theravada, Sautrantika, Vaibhashika, Vatsiputriya, Sammitiya, all these and more, according to some around 20, are all schools which emphasize Shravaka paths. So these schools are generally classified as Shravaka schools or sometimes as Hinayana schools, in the sense that the primary emphasis is on that path to liberation, personal liberation. So it can refer to a Vinaya lineage, for example, or it can refer to a specific interpretation of the sutras, so a certain form of Abhidharma. So, and that's very different in terms of concept compared to Jnana. Jnana is a mode of practice. One can be, in terms of Vinaya lineage, Theravada, they can be Mula Sarvastivada, they can be Dharmaguptaka, and if they take up the Bodhisattva vow, still they are Mahayana practitioners. In fact, there is no such thing as a Mahayana monk, if you think about it. Why? Is there a separate Vinaya for Mahayana? Is there a separate ordination lineage for Mahayana? No. In the Tibetan tradition, usually we follow the Mula Sarvastivada, and in the Chinese tradition, as far as you know, is usually the Dharmaguptaka. Maybe there's something else, but I think usually it's the Dharmaguptaka. So actually the Vinaya lineage is a Shravaka lineage. On top of that, if one takes up the Bodhisattva vow, that person is a Mahayana practitioner. There are some who have Theravada Vinaya lineage and are Mahayana practitioners, in the sense that they take up the Bodhisattva vow. That's not only something that has been done and documented, but is also not as uncommon as people think. So it's a matter of primary emphasis. So in this respect, it's just a different concept. You see, when we are substituting Hinayana with Theravada, it's not really the ideal substitution, because one is a name of a vehicle and the other one is a name of a school. And vehicle and school are two different things. One refers to a mode of practice, the other one refers to a certain Vinaya transmission, to a certain way of interpreting the Buddha's teaching. So it doesn't work very well. That substitution was meant as a polite act. Maybe it was very well-meaning, but I feel that if really we want to have a substitution, the term Shravakayana is a better polite word, also because if we use Theravada, we exclude most of the schools which turn out to be more important for most of Buddhism. Because for Indian Buddhism, Sarvastivada is more important than Theravada. So we have to keep this in mind. If you check any of the Mahayana texts, when they talk about Shravaka paths, they are not describing the Theravada methods. They are describing the Sarvastivada school, which was a very prominent school. Nowadays it doesn't survive as a separate school, but it was extremely prominent in the past, and therefore that forms the basis of Shravaka, the Shravaka part of the practice for the Mahayana tradition. So when we create that substitution, we are actually creating a lot of potential confusion. When you end up reading the philosophical criticism of the Shravaka view in a Mahayana treatise, if what you know is the Theravada Abhidhamma, you will see that it doesn't match very directly. Maybe it still applies, but one has to make many changes to make it apply. because they're not directly thinking of that form of Abhidhamma, so they do not explicitly address the technicalities of that type of Abhidhamma. So this is something that we should remember. Even the basic definitions of the most basic dharmas, they're different in the Theravada school and in the Sarvastivada school. And this affects many things. It even affects the meditation. If you learn meditation from those Theravada schools who have some emphasis on Abhidhamma, they tell you the lakkana, which means a defining trait of different dhammas, such as, for example, the elements. So the four great elements, they will tell you what is the definition of the earth element. And based on that definition, one is going to do meditation in order to recognize that element, and this is a basis to develop samatha and then vipassana. Even the definition of the earth element is not the same in Theravada, Abhidhamma, and Sarvastivada and other schools. So we have to remember this. When we make that substitution, there is a potential to create at least some confusion. So when you hear the word Hinayana, if you don't like it for some reason, that's a different issue. I have no problem with it. But remember that there are better substitutes rather than Theravada. The substitute Theravada for the word Hinayana just doesn't work. Okay. Now, the other point is that the reason why I introduced all this is that accordingly, since people think that the word Hinayana is impolite, similarly, they think that the word Mahayana also is impolite because, they think they're big. And then nobody inquires. Why did they use the word Mahayana? Actually, there's several reasons. Many different reasons can be given to explain why it is called great. Why great vehicle? The Mahayana Sutra Alankara, which is one of the great treatises in the Mahayana tradition, one of the Maitreya treatises, gives us 7 different reasons why the great vehicle is called great. So the great vehicle has 7 types of greatness. The first one is called the greatness of the support. Support here means textual support. So, what it means is this. If you take the Shravaka schools, any Shravaka school, their Tripitaka is made of the Sutra, Abhidharma and Vinaya. Actually, not all the Shravaka schools followed this subdivision. Now we are used to that, but not all of them followed exactly this subdivision. Anyway, they don't contain the Mahayana Sutras. Are the Mahayana Sutra few? No. There are many. Are they small? No. Some of them are very extensive. There's the Perfection of Wisdom Sutras. One of them, the longest one, is 100,000 lines. So it's a huge literature. So the first greatness of a Mahayana is the greatness of a textual support. Because they have all the sutras accepted by the other schools, plus all these other Mahayana sutras. So definitely, if you compare the size of the textual support, one can be called Hina, one can be called Maha. What's the flaw with that? Hina means is lacking something. Do they lack the Mahayana sutras? Yes, they do. So where is the lack of politeness? If I say this is a big collection, this is a smaller collection. This is a big book, this is a smaller book. Where am I being rude? I don't think so. So that's the point. Mahayana means, in this case, first reason, the textual support is much larger. Much larger. I mean, the difference is quite huge. Then second reason, pratipatti mahatvena, it's a greatness of practice, or one could say attainment, but I think here is practice. One is practicing or engaging towards two things, not just one. Swarte pararte. So one is not just working for liberation for oneself, one is trying to facilitate the conditions of liberation for others. So one engages in both swartha and parartha. Is one bigger than the other? Well, if you try to remove the suffering of one sentient being, or you're engaging in removing the suffering of all sentient beings, which one do you think is more suffering? So do you think that one is bigger and the other one is smaller, or is it the same? So as a term of comparison, again, you can say it's a sensible comparison. So that's the second. Third one, jnana mahatvena. Dvayoho jnana atma Dvayoho atma pudganaratmyasya dharmanairatmyasya cha prativeda kale. So there is the greatness of awareness. Because at the time of piercing, which this means when one has the direct realization of the nature of things through meditative absorption, at that time one has two types of awareness, not just one. The Shravaka Schools only emphasize the selflessness of persons. The Mahayana Schools emphasize also the selflessness of dharmas. I have to explain. Do you know about the difference between the two? Are you all familiar with this idea? Okay, I take it as a no. Not everyone is. And here we shouldn't get confused, because of course all the schools say sarva dharmaha anatmanaha. All the dharmas are selfless. Does it mean that everyone accepts the selflessness of dharmas? No, because this means something different. It means that for some schools, when they explain the nature of reality, they say that all we have is a collection of impermanent dharmas which arise from causes and conditions, last for a very short time and then vanish. So, because of our ignorance, we always perceive ourselves as permanent, as unitary and permanent. So, we even associate ourselves with a certain name, maybe, and we think that such and such a person is there as a unity, and as a unity which continues through time. According to the Shravaka analysis, when we analyze more carefully, all that we find is nama and rupa. We find nama dharmas, which are the dharmas which are sentient, so consciousness, mind and mental factors. Dharmas which are aware of something, and rupa dharmas which are not aware of anything, so we can translate them more or less like materiality. And we are just a collection of that. We are just a collection of temporary dharmas which are causally related, and therefore they appear in a kind of causally related stream, a continuum. And when this I, this self, is actually just a name. Is like when there is a river. We know that a river is just a collection of water particles, and if we believe in momentariness, each of them lasts only one moment. But out of convenience, we can give it a name. Or the example given usually in the Buddhist text is a chariot. We analyze the chariot in all its parts, and we find that it's just a name. When we put the parts together, we use them in a certain way, we give the name chariot. So that's the selflessness of person. What's the selflessness of dharmas? The selflessness of dharmas is that even those minute, impermanent dharmas of nama rupa, in some sense they're not really there. They're just an illusion. The way this illusion is explained differs in Yoga, Achara and Madhyamaka, so this becomes a little bit more intricate, but basically the idea is that everything we can think of is just like a dream, just like an illusion. Even these dharmas were just concepts. They're not really there on their own. According to the Shravaka Schools, if we have perfect vipassana, we see the arising and cessation of dharmas moment by moment, and we are seeing reality. But for the Mahayana schools, that's not reality. That's an illusion. That's also a kind of mental projection. So that's the view of selflessness of dharmas. Everything is illusory. So this is the other greatness of a Mahayana. Not only selflessness of person, but also selflessness of dharmas. Then, another greatness, Viryarambha Mahatvena, the greatness of taking up valor. So you can say also of valorous undertaking. What does it mean? It means that one continuously and respectfully practices, applies oneself for at least 3 uncountable eons. Is there any difference between these and the Shravaka practice? Do Shravaka practice by starting thinking that, oh, I could get liberation in 1 or 2 lifetimes, but rather I take up this path for a very, very large number of lifetimes. Is it the same? Like, is it the same kind of amount of practice? Is one bigger than the other or not? Is one more practice or not? So that's the meaning of greatness in this case. It's just a term of comparison. If we practice for 1 minute or we practice for 1 million years, it's hard to say that the time we practice is equally great. It's just, I don't think it's rude to say that 1 million years is a longer time than 1 minute. And if I say that, oh, that's a smaller time, oh, that's a longer amount of time, I don't think I've said anything very offensive. So that's the meaning of greatness in the context of taking up valorous effort. The other one is Udagama Mahatvam. So this, oh sorry, I forgot one. Skilling means Upaye Kaushalya or Kaushala. So the Mahayana has great skill in means because one does not become afflicted or distressed even when one has not yet abandoned samsara. So that's the special feature of bodhisattvas, especially bodhisattvas on the bhumis. Yes, of course, they're not completely free from mental defilements and their subtle influences. But nevertheless, were not very negatively affected by that, and so were not distressed. So, if you check, this point is made even in the Heart Sutra. If you read the Heart Sutra carefully, this is indicated even in the Heart Sutra. So this kind of upaya kaushalya, this type of skill in means or skillful method, is not found in the Shravaka path. So there is a greatness in terms of skill in means. Another greatness is the greatness of accomplishment or attainment, because as a result one obtains the 10 strengths, one obtains the confidences and all the other unique qualities of a Buddha. So Shravakas also agree that between an Arhat, a Pratyeka Buddha, and a Buddha, the difference is immense. They agree. Even in the Theravada tradition, they say it very explicitly, in fact. Why? Because the Buddhas have certain unique, exclusive qualities which are completely unshared by any other sentient being, even liberated sentient beings. And therefore, the result of Mahayana practice is greater. The qualities, the good qualities that one obtains through Mahayana practice are incomparably greater than the good qualities that one obtains through Shravaka practice or Pratyeka Buddha practice. So that's another type of greatness. And the last type of greatness is the greatness of the Buddha activity. Now this greatness, of course, if you ask a Shravakayana philosopher, they might not entirely agree, in the sense that the way in which Buddha activity is described in the Mahayana and understood in the Mahayana is different. The Buddha is considered to have more abilities to benefit. So, for example, the Buddha is able to display again and again the obtainment of Buddhahood or the passing into Mahaparinirvana. The Buddhas can display that numerous times for the sake of sentient beings, even if they have already obtained Buddhahood a long time ago. So in order to guide sentient beings, Buddhas can appear in infinite Buddha field in infinite ways, displaying all these activities of a Buddha which guide sentient beings. And this greatness of activity, again, is connected and is made possible by Mahayana practice. So that's the greatness of achievement, or the greatness of activity, So these are 7 reasons why the Mahayana is called Maha. There's probably even more reasons in other treatises, but this is a rather authoritative treatise, so I think this explanation should be quite a common one. So now we have some idea of why Mahayana. I realize for myself that even as Mahayana practitioners, very often, let's say we know more or less we are Mahayana practitioners, but we don't even know why the Mahayana is called Mahayana, which is quite interesting. You don't need to tell this to Theravada monks. Of course, it's all recorded in video, but anyways, some do not like it. But actually, I have to say that I am used to teach to Theravada monks. Very often we have Theravada students. And when you explain in this way, sometimes actually they agree. Because I have Theravada monks friends who in fact suffered precisely because of this confusion. What do I mean? I know at least one Theravada monk who went to Nepal to study Mahayana treatises, and he was studying indeed the Bodhicharyavatara, if I remember correctly. Either the Bodhicharyavatara or maybe he was studying Chandrakirti, one of the two. And what happened is that the Tibetan master who was giving the explanation was trying to be polite, and so whenever there was a refutation of Shravaka position, instead of using the word Hinayana, he always used Theravada. And my friend was always confused because he thought, there's no Theravada text which says this. So what is this refutation? What's going on? So you see that actually, that attempt at being polite just created confusion for him. And the reason is that if we read even Bodhicharyavatara, the chapter on wisdom, when there is a refutation of non-Mahayana view, is not thinking of a Theravada Abhidhamma, is thinking of Sarvastivada, Sautrantic, or some other form of Abhidharma. Usually those were the ones which were more prominent, not really the Theravada. So we have to keep that in mind. So that means even Theravada monks, if you understand, if you explain that usually the word Shravaka is what we find in the treatises, when the word Hina is used, is because it's used for those people that could practice the Mahayana, or for those people whose vow might degenerate. This is the other point. If we take up the Bodhisattva vow, giving up the Bodhisattva vow is not considered to be a very good thing. Let's just put it mildly. That means that sometimes the Buddha might use, or some masters might use, slightly more forceful language to describe the non-Mahayana path, just as a kind of warning, so that those who are in the Bodhisattva path do not let their Bodhicitta degenerate and give up the Bodhisattva vow, because that's not considered a very good thing. Really not good. Okay, so okay, I will repeat them briefly. Maybe it's possible that I haven't explained some. So the first one is the greatness of a support. The second one is the greatness of the practice, which is towards twofold benefit. The third one is the greatness of awareness. The fourth one is the greatness of valorous undertaking. The fifth one is the greatness of skill in means. The sixth one is the greatness of attainment. And the seventh one is the greatness of Buddha activity. So these are the 7 greatnesses of the Mahayana. Generally, actually, if we are thinking of politeness, well, in fact, the idea is that if we know that somebody doesn't have a positive view of the Mahayana, what we are supposed to do with that person actually is not only avoid the term Hinayana, but not to talk about Mahayana at all. Because if we talk about it, let's say we like Bodhicitta very much. If we start talking about Bodhicitta to somebody who doesn't have at all that predisposition and has a very strong negative mind, when that person develops a negative mind towards Bodhicitta and towards the Mahayana, it's a very great amount of demerit. And it's partly our fault that we let them develop that demerit. So today I took a risk. But basically that's what is described in the text, that we should be very careful. Once I went to one Lojong training connected to this. Lojong means mind changing training. by Khenpo Ape Rinpoche, who was a very great master in the Sakya tradition, like one of the really great scholars in the whole of the Tibetan tradition. And he was one of the things he mentioned was that when we do mind training, which usually means developing the proper intention of bodhicitta and sustaining it, practicing it, not make it degenerate, like through a Bodhicharyavatara or through other texts like the 8 verses or the 37 practices of a bodhisattva. All of these texts in the tradition of Atisha are mind training texts. He said, this is secret, actually. We think that secret means Vajrayana, but that's not the meaning. Secret means when we take up a practice that somebody else might develop wrong view about, then we don't show it too much. If we don't show it too much, we protect our own practice. That's another point, because it helps us not form too many concepts about it. When we talk about it too much, then about our own practice, we can form more concepts. Also, other people maybe don't understand. If we're not doing the same thing, we describe our practice, we think it's very clear, then the other person understands, looks like we understand nothing of what we are saying, and we ourselves start getting more confused. But the main point is, if they get wrong view, we have not helped them in any way. So, it is said, since what is connected to the Mahayana intention is at least a little bit counterintuitive, there are many things which are discussed in the Mahayana which are a bit counterintuitive, even in terms of which wish we develop and how we treat our enemies, etc., etc. All these things, we should be careful about whom we talk to. As I was saying, even the practice of Maitri, if you go to somebody and you tell them, I'm Buddhist. Okay, what practice do you do? I do Maitri. What does it mean? It means I love cockroaches just like my mother. Now, their idea of Buddhism might be that you have some problem, and maybe it's better not to practice Buddhism, because I like my mother a lot and I crush cockroaches, which are horrible animals. This is general mentality. So usually if you just tell them, those people are not they will not take up that. They will not develop a favorable impression of the practice of Maitri. So generally speaking, with the point, I think I mentioned that earlier, from the Bodhisattva perspective, there are some ways to be, to attract other people towards Buddhism, but they're not so explicit. Maybe I will mention them because those also are Bodhisattva practices. I will bring you the list maybe tomorrow. But basically, it has something to do with how we behave. Not so much with very overt advertisement. That's a more natural way to let people develop a positive view of Buddhism and Mahayana practice. Like if somebody, let's say they visit Tanxiang, we see, oh, everyone is so polite, people are very nice, helpful, soft. They all will appreciate, they will think, wow, there must be something to it. So this is a simple way, if we want to protect the Buddhist teachings, the easiest way sometimes is just to guard how we behave. So that's better than talking very explicitly about our practice, especially to people that we are not sure about the interest. So if we take care of that, the opportunity to be impolite about Mahayana and Hinayana should not arise. If we can still use those terms, but we just take care. See whom we are talking to, whether contextually those terms make sense and whether they're useful, and then we can use them. I think if the Buddha and the great masters of the past have used certain terms, we should not discard them. This is my personal opinion, but I think we should not invent necessarily new terms, because at least I don't feel like I'm omniscient, so I don't feel I can rewrite the sutras. I don't think I'm a great master like Shantideva, and therefore I should strike away his words. Rather, we should understand the context and try to find the proper context to use them. Okay, that's what I wanted to explain about the Mahayana, what it means. And now we can say the dedication prayer, and we can say it together. Anena punyena tu sarvadarshitam avapya nirjitya chadosha vidvisha jararuja mrityumahormi sankulat samudhareyam bhavasagarat jagat. Anena punyena tu sarvadarshitam avapya nirjitya chadosha vidvisha jararuja mrityumahormi sankulat samudhareyam bhavasagarat jagat. Anena punyena tu sarvadarshitam avapya nirjitya chadosha vidvisha jararuja mrityumahormi sankulat samudhareyam bhavasagarat jagat.